What's the quickest you've noped out of a job? I won't pay you to design that logo, but when my friends ask who did it, I'll tell them, and you'll get more work that way. Nope. Wanted something part-time when I was at university. Applied for at the local cinema chain, and got an interview. It was one of those high turnover places that meant if you got an interview there was a 95% chance you got a job. Guy on the box office radioed to his manager, and was told to take me to room 7. We got to room 7 and wait. And wait. And wait. About 25 minutes pass before the manager starts screaming abuse over the radio, because we were not in room 2. So off to room 2, we go on the other side of the building, 15 screen cinema. The manager starts trying to turn on the charm, and I basically say, if that's how you treat your employees in front of a job candidate, there is no way I am ever working for you, and asked the other guy to show me out. I'm sure it made no difference to his behavior, but it saved me a lot of potential abuse. I had a job in a salad plant. Those bags of salad mix a lot of restaurants use. I was there for 2 weeks coring lettuce, in front of a conveyor belt, 8 hours a day, pick up a head, slam it, pull the core, put it down, next. You talk to your coworkers or you plot the downfall of Western civilization. One really sweet lady had been there for 10 years. 10 years on the lettuce line. She got called into the office and was gone for about half an hour. She said, "I won't be here tomorrow." I got promoted. I asked what she'd be doing. Cabbage. I didn't quit. I wished her well, dropped my shit and walked out. I feel bad about not quitting, but I was young, and, well, 10 years. That was 28 years ago. Had I stayed I might be up to carrots by now. I sometimes wonder how my life might be different had I stayed, and in those moments I celebrate every decision I've ever made. Edit. When I say I didn't quit, I walked out. I didn't formally tell anyone I was leaving, and I provided no notice. I've never left any other job this way. Was 19 and started work at a Lube Pros oil change shop. Manager was a 24-year-old guy, who, within the first hour of me working there, bragged about hanging around the trails near a local high school and beating up 14 and 15-year-olds for their money and weed. He also said that if I'm cleaning out a car and I find weed or if I see pills, to take them and give it to him. He had a racket where he would steal illegal things from people's cars and threatened to call the cops if they didn't let him keep it. Left at the end of my shift, called the corporate number and quit, telling them everything this guy was doing. Drove by there the next morning, and a cop was questioning him. The place closed a few months later. Mine had to be when I was 18 and working at Blockbuster. I was helping the manager during the before open shift getting new items stocked on the shelves that came in that morning. My mom called me and told me that my dad was having a heart attack and she was panicking while waiting for the ambulance. Why did she call me at work to tell me this? The Blockbuster I worked at was in a strip mall type area behind my cul-de-sac. My house and the Blockbuster was separated by a small alley and a 3-minute walk. I told my manager what was happening and asked if I could leave to help my mom while they waited for the ambulance. She said no. I just stood there looking at her thinking she couldn't be serious. I would be gone for all of 10 minutes and back helping her if needed. She stressed how important it was to get the things done that needed to be done, and I could only leave if I called around to the other workers and found someone to come in and cover for me while I was gone. I took off my name tag, slammed it on the counter, and walked out. I never went back for any reason. For any who might wonder, my dad came out fine, was in the hospital for a few days. I went for a marketing job, which specified there was international work included. At no point during the interview did they say it was door-to-door sales. They didn't mention going to people's houses, it was in the field marketing. They invited me to a day with them. I lasted half a day of the most soul-destroying work, working with people with no ethics, etc. It was awful. How was it international? The boss man had been to a conference in Germany. I was paired with one guy. He in the end sent me off because I was putting him off his game. I told him I had been looking for a way out for hours and was dreading spending the rest of the afternoon there. I then walked back to the train station as fast as I could. Worked in a bakery. It was my first day, so I get there in the morning to meet everyone. Then they have me grease up baking trays for the others to fill. I lift up the first tray, and like 10 to 15 cockroaches just scatter everywhere from under the tray. I tell the guy showing me the work that there were cockroaches, and he just shrugged. This was all in the back store. Customers were about 10 feet away. So I tell the guy that I'm not feeling too well after about an hour of doing that, and I head to the bathroom. When I came out, I told him I couldn't do that job, and he told me to get a real job then. So I left and got myself a proper job. TLDR, cockroaches. Did you report them for that? Please tell me you reported their insanely unclean facility. I didn't at the time, but I did tell my mom, who had sort of found the job for me, and she didn't believe me and thought I was making it a bigger deal than it was. Turns out a month later an inspector closed the place down because of how nasty it was. I was 22. Living in New York City. Young and dumb, and got an interview for a so-called job in finance. I was invited for the interview to a big fancy hall in a midtown hotel. There had to be a couple hundred people there. Well, the lights dim, the projector goes on, and the guy starts talking about money and money management. Then a single human icon appears on the screen. Then 2 under the single one. Then 3 under those 2. Mother ducker, it's a pyramid scheme. I walked right out. Duck Primerica, and they're hiding under the city umbrella logo. Ah, Primerica. I laughed when I went to that presentation. Only $200 to get started with all the licensing you can get for free if you do your homework. Saddest part was, there was a disabled woman there who said she had kids and just couldn't get by. Everyone in the room was moved by her story, and the presenter said how this would be the perfect opportunity for her. She got screwed the hardest probably. I worked in Claire's for one day. At the end of the shift she asked me to put a bucket load of tiny earring packages back on the walls. A few hours later I finish, and apparently misplaced a few of them, so she threw all of them to the floor and said to do it again. Nope. Graphic design from home job. Nailed the interview. Had absolute confidence I could provide this dude what he was asking for. Got the job, and the first thing he said was to take a rather large check that would be mailed to me, and buy my equipment. It was supposed to be from a special vendor that was to engrave the laptop and provide software. It was a scam. I looked up his business on Google, rather than through the link he sent me. I found the exact same shitty website with dozens of different CEOs. Told him to not send me a check, and that I was no longer interested. The check was going to be fake, and the money I would be sending to the vendor would end up being my own once the bank found out. Edit. This was a legit job posting on LinkedIn. That was from a premium member who had a company page on the site with a physical location. I'm used to working with small businesses, so nothing really seemed out of place aside from his very odd English. When I was 16, I had an interview at a local pizza place in a not so good part of town. I was hired, and as I was walking out, 2 guys came in and robbed the place. The manager gave them the money in the register, and they ran out. I looked at him, and he said, "You get used to it." I never went back. My first day on a carpentry job, a 20-year-old kid, I was 22 at the time, shot me with a nail gun from about 20 feet away. He thought it was hilarious, and so did everyone else including the company owner. Nope, right the duck out. Duck that kid, and everyone at that job. I shot the new kid with a nail gun. Lol lol. Huh. I hope they test positive for something. Oh, I'm sure he did. Over the 4 weeks I was there, only cause I was looking for a new job, he shot me 3 times. Once either shin, once on the shin and once in the back. None of the nails ever stuck, but it felt like getting hit by a paintball and left a mark. Karma caught up with him though. He shot a 2-inch nail into his thigh and had to be rushed to the ER. Duck that job, and all those idiots. I once saw a Craigslist ad for a stereo salesman. I showed up to a warehouse where a bunch of dudes got into a minivan. The owner told me to go on a run and see how it is, and then talk about the job. Turns out all these guys did was lie and con. They would go up to strangers and say, "Hey man, my cousin got this stereo, but he just got arrested and I don't need it. It's worth 500 but I'll gladly sell it for 200. Then use pushy tactics to get people to go to the ATM and give them money. The system was a piece of shit off-brand, and I overheard the owner saying in bulk it only cost him $20 to buy. Yeah, I noped out of this pretty quickly. I also called the police. This was in 2010. Was told to work inside an industrial metal shredder that didn't have a safety lockout. Hell to the duck, nope. When I was in the army, it was common for units to rotate through the post to help with cleaning. So a group of my guys were sent to the recycling center to help there. One of them was shown to a dumpster full of phone books, this was back in '98, and an industrial shredder with the instructions of, "Put these in here." And the guy walked off. So, he starts tossing in the phone books. After a few hundred, one gets stuck, and the machine shuts off. Guy figures it's a safety thing, so he grabs the end of the book to pull it out. That was just enough to clear the jam, and the book gets sucked into the machine, along with 3 of his fingers. So, hospital for the Joe, and the center gets shut down for a safety investigation. Next day, inspectors show up, and the guy there says, "Yeah, I trained him how to use the equipment, and he violated the safety regulations. His fault, we aren't to blame here." Which was a lie. That whole place was out of regulations, and everyone was fired. My friend that lost his fingers got a nice pension and medical out. Cold calling people about injury claims. Have you been injured in the past 3 years? That kind of thing. The thing that really irked me was that all of the people I called in those 20 minutes were polite, said they are not interested, and they were just sitting down for dinner. I realized it was a horrible job, and I was in no way cut out for it. I left after 20 minutes, and just walked out the door without a word. Second day at Route 21, and the managers plus other co-workers all went out to lunch together, and left me alone in the store. I wasn't able to ring up people yet, and the store was packed. I just walked out,